Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the part 1 of the purchase order explained video. Let's get down to the part 2 and explain the purchase order terms and conditions. We also call it T and C. The first one is the acknowledgement. Purchase order is not valid until acknowledged by the supplier. What do I mean by that? The purchase order is like an offer. Like you're making an offer to your supplier. I'll pay you this amount of money and I expect you to deliver by this date and give me a certain product. Until the supplier agree that, okay, I'll give you this certain product according to your specification. And I agree this is the total payment amount and all these terms and conditions, you put it on your purchase order until they acknowledge that this purchase order is not valid. So it is really critical you read your supplier's PI and make sure they acknowledge this purchase order. A lot of times, after the supplier acknowledge with a PI, you make changes to your PO. If that's the case, you will need to ask your supplier to update their pro forma invoice, their PI. The second one is payment term. Let me read this quickly so we're on the same page. Buyer is responsible for paying total PO amount in USD currency. Supplier and his designated recipient is responsible for receiving bank's fees and charges. Down payment is due upon supplier's written pro forma invoice before production. Remaining balance is due after final inspection is approved by the buyer, and final commercial invoice and packing list are rendered to the buyer. So there's a few points here I must point out, guys, so you are crystal clear with the payment term. First is down payment is due after supplier's written pro forma invoice. So over here, we said 30% upon PI before production, 70% upon final inspection approval. Don't take this lightly, guys. The reason I said your down payment is due with their supplier's written pro forma invoice before production is because you need their formal acknowledgement to your expectations on the ready date, on the payment, and the entire purchase order's terms and conditions. Only with their acknowledgement that they agree with these terms and conditions, you issue your first down payment. Once the money is gone, it's impossible to get it back from the overseas suppliers. So take your time, go over the terms and conditions with your supplier, be fair, be firm, and make sure their written PI is acknowledging your specification, your payment, and then you issue your first down payment. The second point, guys, is the remaining balance is due after final inspection is approved and the commercial invoice and packing list are rendered. So be crystal clear with your supplier. You are not going to pay them, even if they say, oh, your shipment is ready, you need to pay for the remaining balance. No, your remaining balance is not due until you are satisfied with final inspection. And before you arrange the final inspection, in fact, they need to send you the commercial invoice and the packing list so you can have your inspection agency to verify the total quantity they are ready to ship. Sometimes after the inspection, because there are defective products or quality issues, the shipping quantity may change. So your final payment is due after you are happy, you approve the final inspection, after they have the final commercial invoice and the packing list that is finalized and send it to you, then you send your remaining balance. The third point, guys, is the miscellaneous fees. Be very upfront and clear. You are responsible for the purchase order amount. in this currency, whether it's USD or Euro or whatever the currency the parties agreed. Once the supplier acknowledged that this is the purchase order amount, you are only responsible for this purchase amount. If the recipient part, whether the supplier themselves or they use a trading company to receive the money, they may have some bank fees and charges. It doesn't matter. It should have nothing to do with you. Be very clear and upfront on this payment term. You are only responsible for the currency and the payment amount listed on the PO, which is acknowledged in their pro forma invoice. Okay, the third point is the specifications. Supplier agrees to produce buyer's product according to the specifications instructed by the buyer, including but not limited to specifications as outlined in this PO and or instructed via written emails, texts, or chat messages prior or after the PO is issued. The reason I write this specification in this way is because a lot of times your attachment or your specifications listed on the PO may not cover the entire scope. A lot of times after the PO is issued, either during the production or during the communications, design changes happen. So that's why I have put it down here to get you covered if there are changes. In case you didn't get it covered in the purchase order or in the attachment, at least it's in the terms and conditions the supplier agrees to follow your instruction, even if the changes are made after the PO is issued. Number 4 is the warranty. The first point is the warranty period. In this purchase order, I defined the material or workmanship defects as warranty issue, and the period is 1 year of the shipping. Guys, you can negotiate either 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, depending the type of the product. Electronic product, they probably don't even go beyond 6 months. You know what I mean? So the shipping date. So 1 year start to count from the shipping date. The shipping date is not the date when your shipment get picked up. The shipping date is the date shown on the bill of lading document, which is the receipt of the shipment. If it's an air freight, it will be airway bill. But most of the shipments, through ocean, you cannot really afford to air freight your product a lot of times. So I put down the bill of lading document, which is the receipt of your shipment. The second point is how you're going to get the money back if the defects products are discovered. I said it here at a buyer's discretion, meaning you have a choice. You can either request the supplier to refund you the money or credit towards your future purchases, either at the material cost or cost plus damage. So I want it to be clear, guys. Even though we said it, you can request the money back or credit towards your future purchase. Your first choice should always negotiate upfront, right here, discount for warranty. Negotiate upfront, get the money first, because it is impossible to get a refund. You just wanted to put down here, but it's almost impossible to get Chinese suppliers to wire you the money or credit towards your future purchase, which is possible. That is to assume you are going to buy from them again. If this supplier has a super bad quality, that means you may not want to pursue it. Or if your product doesn't sell, then you may not want to pursue this product again. Then you just end up have to bear all these costs associated with the defect product. So the first priority, the first choice is always negotiate a discount, and then you can hold your supplier accountable, either refund or credit, whatever you can get. The number 5 is late delivery penalty. You can read through this entire paragraph, but the two critical points are the window is 7 days. if they're within the 7-day window, they're not late. If they are after the 7-day window, they are late. Starting on the 8th day, the supplier will start to pay penalty. Once again, the late is measured against the ready date as acknowledged in their pro forma invoice. So guys, it's critical that the supplier give you the ready date, and you are going to use the ready date to measure against their on-time delivery. So the reason you create the late delivery penalty is to create a leverage. When you are rushing, for example, for Q4 delivery, and there are other buyers or other Amazon FBA sellers are rushing for the delivery as well. So if two purchase orders put side by side, one with the late delivery penalty, another one doesn't, guess what? The supplier will pay more attention to the purchase order with the late delivery penalty. Sometimes the supplier will push back on this or argue, we cannot promise you that the ready date is going to be the exact date. Fine, let them argue. Ask them, what is the reasonable window of flexible days you need for the ready date? We need a date to measure against your on-time delivery. If they say it's 10 days, if they say it's 15 days, that's fine. You can make a compromise on the windows here, but you cannot make compromise on putting a delivery penalty here. So whether it's a 7-day window or 10 days window, once the two parties agreed upon on the late delivery penalty, the leverage for you is for real because you have not paid for the remaining balance yet. So at your discretion, you can apply the late delivery penalty to the remaining balance. That means you can deduct the late delivery penalty from the remaining balance against the purchase order. So the late delivery penalty clause is intended to create leverage for you and push for communication discipline. When the supplier is running late on their production, if you have a late penalty clause here, it's more likely the supplier will communicate with you. So you can make a compromise on the window of days that to be considered late, but don't make compromise that to choose having this penalty clause in there. So at the end of the day, you can choose to waive late delivery will result in penalty unless it's waived by the buyer. You can choose to waive the late delivery penalty if the supplier has been super good communicating with you and you choose to honor the partnership instead of penalize them and create a bitter feeling for the next order. Guys, in this entire purchase order terms and conditions, there are two situations where you have the right to cancel the entire purchase order. One of them is the supplier is very, very late in delivery. How late? That is, if the supplier is more than 20 days late. I put in 20 days, that is 3 weeks later than they acknowledged delivery date. You can put down 30 days or a month and a half. In the end, you can always negotiate. For example, if the supplier is 3 weeks late, you can use it as a leverage to say, you are 3 weeks late. I have the right to cancel the purchase order if you don't deliver within the next week. You can always extend your grace period to them. It's negotiable, but it's better to have it here as a condition. Buyer reserve the right to cancel the entire PO and request full refund for the down payment, then leave it open. And if the supplier is late perpetually and we don't have any recourse. So this is why this is here. If they are perpetually late, you have the right to cancel. Number 6 is change notification. The reason the change notification is here is because over time, as you continue to source product from Asian countries like China, Vietnam, whatever, you will find these Asian suppliers are not very transparent with the change. Like, even though you have this clear specifications here in the purchase order where you attached a clear specification, but sometimes they make change to the raw material. They substituted raw material, not necessarily inferior raw material, but they just made a change without you knowing. They changed their production process or even packaging. In the end, what you find out is your product quality may not be the same and the on-time delivery is affected. So the reason the change notification is here is try to foster that discipline and force the supplier to tell you when they make the changes. This is specified in the purchase order as a terms and condition. If they don't tell you and your product quality is affected or on-time delivery is affected, you have the right. It's your discretion to reject the product if you don't know anything about the changes. The number 7 is final inspection. There's so much to be said about the final inspection. Remember, your last remaining balance is to be paid upon final inspection approval. Without the final inspection approval, your money should never go to the Chinese suppliers. Once it's gone, it's gone. So for those of you who has read this final inspection terms, who can tell me in what circumstance that you have the right to cancel the entire purchase order? Well, I hope you got it right. It is when the second inspection failed. If the second inspection, the supplier still failed at it at your discretion, you can void partial or entire purchase order, or you give them another chance to carry out the remainder of the PO. So let's take a look at the penalty here if they fail the first inspection. If they fail the first inspection, there are 3 penalties. Number 1 is to pay for the second inspection. Since the first inspection, it is your cost. If they fail, they have to pay for the second inspection. It's not additional cost to you. They have to agree to this. Number 2, they are responsible and they are obligated. They have to expedite the rework or reproduction of partial or entire purchase order. If they failed, meaning they're already late, so they have to expedite the reproduction of the purchase order. And number 3 is to pay a minimum 5% late delivery penalty unless they are working with you proactively, resolving the issue, asking for forgiveness. In that case, you could possibly waive the penalty. So these 3 conditions is set for the first inspection failure. They have to pay the second inspection fee. They have to expedite the reproduction. Don't let you wait until the la-la land. And number 3 is to pay a minimum late delivery penalty fee. If they understand this, they shouldn't, or at least they should try not to fail the first inspection. If the supplier challenge this, you need to fully understand why they are so afraid to fail. If they are not afraid to fail, they shouldn't be afraid to put it down here as a commitment to deliver quality product on time. Finally, the number 8 is the dispute. There are 3 points I wanted you to be clear with in this term. Number 1 is the law of choice. The law of choice is the laws of the Republic of China, the Chinese law. You cannot take the Chinese supplier to court in United States or in overseas because your judgment is going to mean nothing if you win. So might as well use the laws of the Republic of China. And the second point is the prevailing language. I choose English here. There are some purchase order templates they will have English and Chinese, and some say Chinese language prevail. No, we have to choose English here. Just in case you make any modifications, the Chinese doesn't match up, or you don't have someone to help you with the Chinese version, always use the English as the prevailing language. And the third point is the disputing place is not going to be in the court of China, but instead is going to be in the arbitration commission for arbitration. The reason I choose not to use a Chinese court to dispute your cases, just in case you dispute your cases in China, is because the Chinese court most likely to be the court that has governing power over the Chinese supplier, most likely is going to be a small little court in their local city, and the relationship is very corrupted. So we choose the arbitration because there is a little bit sense of independency from the court system. And also I choose Shanghai instead of Guangdong because in Guangdong, most of the suppliers are in Guangdong. Even if I choose the Guangdong Arbitration Commission, they may still have a lot of connections. Whereas Shanghai is kind of like an independent city, very metropolitan, like a New York of the United States. People are quite modern, rich, contemporary. And if you choose the arbitration language as English, you could attend the arbitration representing yourself. So it gives you a sense of independence if we choose arbitration in Shanghai, and you can represent yourself if we choose the language to be English as a proceeding language, and you just fly to Shanghai, attend by yourself. If they don't show up, then you win and your case will just executed by the local court. Even if you don't collect winnings, at least you win, right? So that's the reason. Choose the Chinese law so that your judgment have a chance to collect. Choose the English as the prevailing English in this entire contract, so you have a solid reference point as what is specified, and choose Shanghai as arbitration body for your case instead of choosing the court and choose English as the proceeding language. So that is the language, governing law, and the dispute cases. This is it, guys. We went over the entire purchase order, especially the terms and conditions take a bit of a time. Hopefully this is clear. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Just always keep in mind, don't ever pay the down payment until you have the written pro forma invoice to confirm everything you expect your supplier to confirm, whether it's delivery date is important to you or quality or all the other terms here. And also don't pay the final payment until your inspection is 100% satisfactory to you. So as long as you keep the money tight in your wallet, you should be okay. So until next time, feel free to message me once again. Thank you so much for your time. I'll talk to you soon.